Hello everyone, this is Will from Apple One-to-One. We're doing a very special video that I've been wanting to do for a while. One of the things I do every single day is I work with Final Cut Pro. This is literally my entire life is Final Cut Pro. And a thing I started doing 2 years ago was making a next day wedding recap for my couples that I work with under WV Productions, which is my wedding business. So I wanted to show people how I do that. And there are a lot of skills that will take a long time to get to this, but basically what I do is after I'm done and film the wedding, I import all the footage into Final Cut Pro, and then next morning I wake up and 3.5 hours later, I make this video. And I wanted to show people how I do it and, you know, maybe some skills you could take from it. I don't expect everyone to get that done that quickly, but the idea is to show you what I done, how I did it, and just to get an idea. So let's first start off with, these are all the clips I have here. Now, for the sake of time, I'm not going to go into all the process of how I did everything. I just want to give you the breakdown of it. So the first thing I do is I have the date of the wedding, and I put the couple there. So when I go new, library, what I always do is I make a new library for every couple. For this case, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to call it test wedding. That way we have that. And then it opens up a new smart collections, and of course there's an empty event. The first thing I like to do is I like to already label these, and if you look below, I have audio, projects, and video. I'm going to go here, I'm just going to call it audio, and then I'm going to create a new event, and I two-finger click, by the way, that I'm doing that is two-finger click, new event, or you can do Option N, and then I'll call this video. And then the last one I'm going to make is projects. Now, a lot of times with weddings, I have multiple projects I have to work on, like the raw editing, or the full wedding, or the recap. So I have 3 different sections here. So the first one's obvious audio. Now, couples always ask for the audio of the clip. So I'm just going to take the audio that they used, and what I'm going to do is under File, I'm just going to copy the clip to the library of Test Wedding. And what that's going to do is it pops up this window asking me what I want to do with that clip. Well, I'm going to copy it over just for the sake of this video. I could also clip without the media as well if I wanted to, but for this case, I'm just going to do the media. So now I have the audio, and actually what it did is it created a new event. I didn't want to do that. So I want to take this and just drag it over to audio, and then this will be empty. We don't need this. Let's get rid of that. Normally, I don't do that. Normally, I would import from my downloads or from my source on there. For video, I'm going to import the media. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm using my iPhone for this. So there is footage I shot from my iPhone. And the clips are showing up now here. And what I do is I select, and then I'll just hold down the Shift key and select the multiple clips I have, because obviously this is all footage from everywhere. Also, I have footage from Final Cut Camera. Final Cut Camera does not show up in this section. It's done a little bit differently, and I'm going to show you how I did that. So we're in Finder right now, and I'm going to go to my iPhone, and inside Finder is where the iPhone is now stored, if you remember the old days where it was in iTunes. And what I'm going to do is go to the section called Files. In there are all the apps that have all the data, and Final Cut Camera is right here, and if I do a drop down, it's going to show the DMC folder, which has 7.5 gigs of content. I would just drag this to the desktop, and that's how I get all my footage over from there. So for Final Cut Camera, or if you use Blackmagic, you have to drag the files directly to a location. You could put it in downloads. It's wherever you want to put it. Once I drag it there, what I do is then I go back to Final Cut, and I'm going to import the media from the downloads or the desktop, wherever it's stored. So that's how that's done regarding the footage. So if I go to my completed project, I'm going to use the search IMG because that's the name of the files, and you'll see some footage in here from my iPhone, which is this. This was actually Final Cut Camera footage that's shot here, but and I shoot it a little bit differently. I use what's called log, which is a flattened image, so you have more room to work with the imagery. Let's talk about how I actually made this thing. So under projects, what I'm going to do is make a new project name using Command N, or if you went to File, New, Project, and I'm going to call it Test Recap. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in something called a placeholder. Placeholder is just basically what it sounds like. It's basically putting something on the timeline in place of my video footage. Now, when I do this, I'm doing this before I even film the event. This is all done prior to me starting it, because what I'm doing is I'm trying to get everything lined up so it works out, and that way when I bring the footage over, I could do this. So I'm going to go to the text under generators. I'm just going to do PLA placeholder. Hit E, which will bring it to the timeline, or you could drag it, but normally I hit E. It's a fast command way. And immediately, because a placeholder doesn't have video properties, it's asking me what format I want to do it in. Normally I do a 1080, 24 frames, that's fine, and I'm going to move it there. Now the placeholder is here. Now it's by default 10 seconds, but what I want to do is I want to make that longer. Now I could just drag it, that is an option, but what I typically do is I'll change the frame rate in here. And how I do that is Control D. What Control D lets me do is it turns this blue or purple. And what I do now is I type in my own number of what I want it to do. Remember, everything's in frames, seconds, minutes, hours. So I'm going to do this at 3 minutes. Most of my recaps are around 3 to 4 minutes. So I'm going to put 3, 0, 0, 0, 0. And you can see now I have 3 minutes, 0 seconds, 0 frames at return. And now you see it automatically labeled it right to 3. So that extends my placeholder a lot longer. So Control D is going to be great if you want to have a certain time frame for something that you want to extend longer. And I use this mostly for placeholders. All right, so now I'm going to bring the song in. So under audio, I'm going to take the song and I'm just going to place my playhead where I want it. I'm just going to go right over here. Again, I'm using my it's basically floating over here to the right. Hit Q. Q is going to automatically attach it as to a clip. So anytime you use the letter Q, no matter where you are, it's going to put it wherever you move that cursor. So I'm going to put the whole song in here. There's the whole song. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the song, and what I want to do is I want to put something called markers in. And markers is going to allow us to get things kind of on the beat. So I'm going to listen to the song. Of course, it's coming through my headphones. Boom. And I'm using the letter M. Marker. Boom. Boom. Listen to it. Boom. And listen to it. Boom. Boom. And I'm just hitting M as I'm listening to the track. Okay. Great. So I have a couple markers here. And that's how I label the entire video. I will listen to the entire song, and based on the sound or the beat, I will put M markers in here. I'm not going to cut or do anything. It just leaves them there. So now I have my parts, and I'm using Command plus and Command minus to zoom in and zoom out. So you could do that. There's also a magnifying glass, but I find Command plus and Command minus the easiest way to do this. You're going to have to learn shortcuts, everybody, when you do this. So that's how this works, is that all my audio is lined up where I want to be, and then I place these markers in the clip. And because I'm on a trackpad right now, I could just zoom in and zoom out with my fingers. That's what I'm doing here as well. Now, this is what I would do before I even start bringing in footage. So this is already done. I already have the project. I already have the audio lined up. And now it's time to bring in the video. Now what I do is I have a common amount of keywords. So keywords are very important. This is how I organize all the footage. So I have bridal party, I have bride, I have bride and groom, I have the first dance. So I have, let me get rid of the IMG here. There's a lot more footage in that. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of different things. And what I like to do with the keywords is I like to bring them over from each clip, because I already have an established amount of keywords. One thing a lot of people don't know is that you can highlight all these items, and then all I got to do is just drag it to the video and let go. What's great about this is that it doesn't bring the footage, it just brings the keywords over. And that to me is extremely important, because what that's allowing me to do now is it allows me to start just dragging items that I want to organize. It makes it so much easier for me. Then what I would do is bring in the footage. Now, in this case, I would do that Command I. Let's say it's the day of the wedding, I'm done, and now I want to bring in the footage. So I would highlight everything and then highlight all my clips, and then I would hit import selected. I'm not getting too much into these today, but we're going to do import selected here, and then that would bring the footage in. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to refer back to my other event in place of this because I already have it already done for you. But you can see that all I did was if you want to make, so if you want to take a clip and you want to add it to the keyword, all you got to do is just drag it over to it and boom, it adds it to there. There are blue lines that would indicate that. So you can see there's like these blue lines that appear on the clip. That indicates that it's a keyword in there. If I was to hit the key icon, it shows you right here, it's under the first look. So if I go to first look, that footage is in here. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about multicams because when I make this, I don't worry about the multicam. That's what this icon represents. But what I would do for this as an example is I would take a selection, drag it, and then I would just bring it down here in the timeline. And as you can see, it's magnetically attaching it. And then all I got to do is adjust it. And as I'm playing it back, I can hear if it lines up. So I would start doing that for all these different clips. I would just start dragging stuff to the timeline and seeing if it lines up. I could drag it down. The other thing I'll also do is I will highlight a selection. That's a bad selection. Let me try that one. And then while I'm down here, I'll hit the letter Q. And again, Q is attaching it directly to the clip. The only problem with that is I have the audio here, which is something actually I don't want. So I'm going to delete that and redo it. What I want to do instead is these icons right here represent bringing items to the timeline. This actually represents the Q. This represents W, which is inserting the clip into the primary storyline, which I don't do for this particular item. And then append, which ends it to the end of the clip, which I don't want to do. And then overwrite, which would be D, which means it'll overwrite it. Now, overwrite would actually work in this case. So if I hit D, what it does is, see, it removes the marker, and what it does, it puts it into that section. The reason why I don't use that is because I kind of want the marker sometimes to stay there, just in case I mess up. So what I'm going to do in this case is I only want to move the video only. And now, when I bring this down, you can see the audio is not taken because I usually don't use the audio unless it's a specific reason. So again, what I did there, let's go back to all, is I want to do video only, hit the letter Q because the timeline is right here, the little playhead's right here, Q, and there it goes. And then I just drag this over and now it fits to my music. Also, a lot of times what I'll do is I will change the time. So I'll go to the little clock right here, and I'm going to use slow 25% because this is 120 frames. So when I play it back, it looks really cool with the water effect. And then I'll just drag this right here, and that lines up to what I'm hearing. By the way, I'm not playing the audio, obviously, for I'll be copyrighted, so we obviously don't want that. Sometimes what I'm also going to do is bring audio over. So with vowels, they're talking in this clip, and a lot of times I want to use that. So what I would do, in this case, I'm not going to be able to let you hear the audio, but the idea is that I would take the audio portion of the clip and I would use it down here. So what I could do is the same deal. Instead of video only, I could do audio only. And now if I could drag the playhead, or I could just use this and hit Q, and now just the audio comes over. So now when I play it back, I'm hearing both the audio and I'm hearing this at the same time. And then this would just start happening over and over and over. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you like a quick clip at the end. There's going to be no audio on it just for obviously copyright reasons, but I want to show you what that looks like in the end of the day. If I go back to my main timeline here, you can see what I've done is I've added a couple things. So I'm going to talk about the things I've added here. One is I have a title. So I have a title that I have built in here, and I use the same one all the time. I just go to, these are titles I downloaded for free, and then what I do is I just copy it over from another item, but this is the clip that I used, and I kind of use the same one all the time. Then I added a little transition here. I always have their names here on the clip. So again, this is another wedding a title effect that I got, and it just puts it right here, and automatically it turns it from there to black and white. It's actually part of the title. If I take this away, you can see it's in color, and I'm using V, by the way. V is how you just hide something temporarily. And you can see I have audio here from my drone. Again, all this stuff is kind of stationary, and then I have a nice fade into the couple, and then I have like this frame effect where it actually puts like 3 images at the same time on here. That's a little complicated to do, but it's annoying. But as you can see, I have audio straight from there. I have the audio from it. So what I'm going to do is, because I have instrumental here and I have audio over it, I don't think that's going to be a legal problem. Let's put some speakers on.
Has been a dream come true. Today marks the start of our next adventure.
Okay, so that's how I did that. So what it does is that the audio is playing over, and there's some audio playing on it. That's from their vows. And I have clips on top of clips. I actually did a nice little effect here. This is actually the original clip, and then this is the clip I put above it. There was actually like a little light tube that the DJ provided. I put a duplicate here. So you can see I did black and white. I took the same clip twice, and I put originally, this was the original clip, and then I just took the color out of it. I left a little bit of color on the side. Here's the drone footage. This is great too. If I show you over here all the effects I did here, I could take off the color wheel adjustment. That's the color of the water. It looked terrible. So I actually did a mask effect. We talked about that in a previous video, and I made it more blue. And then here's drone footage. And then the last thing I did was something Apple did brand new recently, which is total adjustment. Total adjustment is going to take the entire clip. It basically puts a title over it. And then what you do is you can make a mask effect that changes it. So I use motion FX as LUTs. And let me add the LUT. That's the color difference. See, it adds like something you can add on there. And now it's a kind of a nice like a little effect that I like to use on all my clips. Again, if I take it away, that's what it looks like. If I add it, that's what it does. So it creates like my look that I want for all my videos. So this is how I do this. It's a lot of work. I have to import all the footage the night before. I have to organize it the night before. So I put everything together here. I don't do anything else beyond that. The next morning, I will then go in. I will start adding clips based on the markers that I had in here. I will also put the voiceover that I want to use on the clips. And I just keep filling it out on here. And so that's how I do it. You know, I've been working in Final Cut Pro since 2003. So there was a lot of time that it took for me to do this stuff. It really was something new that I've done. And it's actually helped me create a lot of bookings over the last couple of years, which has been a tremendous thing. So I hope you gained something out of this. The idea really is just to show you how to organize your footage, how to, select your footage, put it in the timeline, how to create stuff ahead of time using your placeholders, using your music, using markers, which are a very valuable thing. And once you do all that and you set everything up, and again, in order of how I do things, the clips go in, I'll mess around with some of the audio. I will then add the total adjustment at the end because it's the last thing I need to do. And then I export it out. So when I go to File, Export, and I share it out, usually what I do is I could export the file and create a ProRes 422 file, which is a very high-end file. It's actually the quickest export. But most of the time I'll do social platforms, and under settings, I would just keep my resolution the same. Everything kind of stays where it is. And then I hit next, and then it'll save it directly into their section. And that's where it goes. And then I put it on my Instagram and stuff like that. I hope you gained a lot of knowledge and skill out of this, and something I do pretty much every week. It's like I do weddings all the time, so I'm very into this whole thing. And I hope you guys really enjoyed what I showed you. And not a typical training video. It's really just to get you an idea of how to use Final Cut, how to organize footage, and I'm big on organizing, and how you can make this look really great. Any questions in the comments, please ask. I will absolutely help you out, especially if I wasn't able to explain everything. I'm just trying to do this as quick as possible so that everyone can have an understanding of how to use Final Cut. But I'll absolutely give you any tips or knowledge that you'd like to learn about. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining me, and I love every single one of you.